Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Tara Gillam, Services Innovation Manager at Business West, and welcome to our autumn webinar and thought leadership series, Innovate 2021, Overcoming Challenges and Building for Growth, supported by Business West and Innovate UK. This series of webinars is running every Tuesday morning throughout the autumn, covering topics from IP, design thinking, funding and finance, leadership strategy and sales and marketing, as well as promoting the wider bespoke available support from us and how we can add value to your future growth plans in this challenging environment. Today is our 7th webinar in this series and the first of 2 webinars covering marketing. Today's webinar is titled Creating a Cohesive Strategy, Marketing Plans with a North Star, and is delivered by one of our expert advisors, Maggie Robinson from Smart Thinking Consultancy. As a participant of Innovate 2021 and subject to Innovate UK eligibility criteria, there is the opportunity to access our comprehensive range of business support services, which includes marketing advice. I will discuss the next steps and how to access these services at the end of the session. Now, before I hand over to Maggie, there is just a bit of housekeeping I'd like to talk you through. If you've got any questions to ask through the session, and there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, do put those into the Q&A section on the Zoom chat feature. This is moderated throughout. And then if you've got any other communications you'd like to do with other attendees, just, use the chat feature where that's an unmoderated area. If you've got any questions or need any assistance throughout, raise your hand and one of us will come and support you. For on demand, this webinar is being recorded. Your personal video and microphones will not be used unless invited to speak by the host for the Q&A session. Without further ado, I'll put you in the capable hands of Maggie.
Thank you, Tara. So, good morning, everybody. So, my name is Maggie Robinson, and I deliver programs on marketing support and strategy for Business West clients who need marketing guidance. So, just a little about me. I spent many years in the corporate sector working for the likes of Argos, Amazon, Tesco, Virgin, and I've worked for both B2B and B2C over various sectors and channels, such as distribution, wholesale, retail, online, SMEs, catalogue, and more. I'm a fellow at the Chartered Institute of Marketing and a former Southwest board member. Well, on this webinar, we will be focusing on the full marketing strategy and all the elements that need to be taken into account. However, I appreciate that some of you will be at different stages in your business and marketing journey and therefore may not want or need all the elements I'm going to talk through. If you identify this as your company, Business West can still help you, as through the programme I can work with you on any of the components that I cover as a separate piece of work, or we can work on the full strategy if you want a more rounded approach. Working through a Business West programme like this delivers the flexibility that you may need for your marketing, so we can tailor some support for you according to your needs and requirements. Although I would always recommend a full strategy, this does give you more of a pick and mix approach. And the marketing elements should be more suitable for you. So just basically speak to a Business West advisor and see if you are eligible. Does this image portray how you feel about your marketing business? Sometimes you have sales, sometimes limited sales. Sometimes you're busy, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you have marketing and do marketing, sometimes you don't. Having a business strategy can help you level out these ups and downs. But it's not just about leveling out the peaks and troughs. In addition, having a strategy can help you with your budgeting, Ensure you are spending your money on suitable activities and not overspending. And that's just the start. It can support you to identify the relevant content for the audience, stop sporadic marketing activity, and help you spot other areas of opportunity. In addition, helping you to stop depending too heavily on word of mouth and reliance of generating business from current clients, rather than spending time and energy on finding new ones and increasing your client base. It will guide you to ensure you are spending wisely, identify some activities are working and generating activity, along with sales leads and tracking and measurements. So all in all, a marketing strategy can help you focus your activities and messages and enable you to track the time and money that you are spending is being utilised fully. So there's a lot to think about when writing a strategy. Unfortunately, there's no simple way, and just picking a marketing activity and off you go doesn't work. We will work through most of the elements to take into account in this webinar, but you also need to think about who is going to do the activity. Do you have the money and do you have the time? There is no point writing a strategy if it's too far weighted with budget or time that you might not have. If this happens, you will put your strategy in a drawer and it will never see the light of day again. So don't start with unrealistic lists of wants. Be honest about the amount of time and budget that you have. If you don't have the time, but you have the budget, you may decide to outsource some of the activities or employ somebody full or part-time. All of this needs to be worked through in your strategy. So to start with, we need some foundations for our plan. You wouldn't build a house without foundations, so why would you build a marketing strategy without them? Most companies don't have a strategy, or if they do, it's out of date or in somebody's head and not written down and shared with the team. So a lot of companies are doing a little bit, but there's no safe structure, meaning your plan is potentially built on some rickety foundations. When speaking to businesses, I often hear things along the lines of, I thought it was a good idea as somebody down the pub said they did it and it worked for them. Or, my next door neighbour's auntie's best friend nephew said I should do this as everybody else does. So basically, some companies are doing activities with no thought process, research, or any other foundation other than they thought it was a good idea for various reasons. It is quite a general discovery to find that companies have too much fresh air in their foundations with nobody guiding or driving the marketing or activity, and certainly no measurements going on. The activity sort of happens or maybe doesn't, depending on internal factors, if somebody has remembered or got the time, but nobody is quite sure what, if anything, is working and nobody is in charge of it or measuring it. A lot of companies are doing activities that they have always done, but they're not sure if the sales leads are coming from these activities. The problem is because they don't know what's happening, they don't want to stop doing it because they're afraid that the sales leads will drop. So as we work through the strategy, you will see that there are a lot of things to take into account, and the things that might have applied 10 years ago or even 2 years ago don't necessarily apply today. There are a lot of things to take into account, including trends, moods, changes of behaviour, customer expectations, just to mention a few. So what goes into your foundations? You need to take into consideration who is your target audience and how you are splitting them. Is it B2B, B2C, geographical, sector, industry, size of company, or something else? You need to define your target audience because this helps you when you move on to your activities. And if you don't have a strong foundation, your plan will most likely fall over. So if you establish that your audience is generally over 70 years old, marketing to them on Instagram probably isn't going to get you the traffic and the results that you need. But where are they? What are they reading and being exposed to? What do they trust and respond to? What do they use? All of these items need to be taken into account, whoever your audience is. You need to set objectives. If you don't have objectives, how do you know if it's working? A client once said to me, we did that activity before and it didn't work. I asked what we were expecting from the activity. The reply was they didn't know, but it didn't work. My next question was, so how did you measure it to know it didn't work? The reply was, it wasn't measured, but it didn't work. Unfortunately, this happens all too often. So take a step back and think about these elements. What are you trying to achieve and how are you going to measure it? Remember to set smart objectives. Be specific, don't be vague. Measurable, always make sure that you can measure the activity. Attainable, is it possible? Don't set a wish list that can't be achieved. Relevant. Make sure the goals are relevant for your business. Time. What's the time frame while taking into account your resources and budget? Look at what your competitors are up to. Are they slashing prices? Are they getting more exposure than you? What are your products and services? This bit sounds easy, but I can assure you that companies forget about their products and services all the time. Or more importantly, they forget to tell people. Unfortunately, it is a common mistake not telling your customers about your products and services. I've come across companies all the time that have a client that they have been working with and then discover the client went elsewhere for another product or service, as they were not aware that the current supplier provided this. So have a think and start plugging the gaps. There could be some easy wins and revenue to be achieved here. Look at what you are tracking. Is it working or not working? How would you tweak to improve things? Sometimes it's not the activity that is wrong, it's the messaging, the timing, or other factors. So always take an overview before making a snap decision either way. When you look at your audience, be careful not to just lump everybody in together. Be clear in your language. A lot of time companies will say to me, I'm targeting a medium-sized company, but when pressed, they're not really sure what a medium-sized company is, as they haven't defined it. So now it could be in terms of size, so with a turnover of X, or based on a number of employees of Y. And sometimes companies struggle with the company size definitions. So for your reference, they are as follows. A definition of a SME is up to 249 employees, but this can be broken down further. A micro business is 1 to 9 employees, small is 10 to 49, medium 50 to 249, and a large company 250 plus. Once you've sorted all this, you need to start thinking about the trends in the marketplace or areas and countries that you are targeting, and how did that affect your business and sector? Are they seasonal, industry trends, or both? You can use the trends to make activities more focused and deliver more impact. But there are other things to take into account to finalise this first part of your strategy and consider in the second part, such as industry and country differences, moods, and marketing trends. Research was done at the University of Amsterdam by Fred Brown, who was a professor of advertising research. He asked 1,287 people to flick through a newspaper and answer some questions after, in regards to the ads that they would recommend. When this data was split by readers' mood, the results were significant. The readers who were relaxed noticed 56% of adverts more than the readers who were stressed, drawing a conclusion that consumers who are in a relaxed frame of mind or in a good mood are more likely to notice your adverts. So as people seem to recall adverts better when they're in a good mood, brands identified that they could target this moment. Depending on your target audience, you could consider targeting consumers during activities that they enjoy, such as at the gym or the cinema. But of course, we now have COVID to add into the mix and the mood of the country. This mood is becoming more disjointed, depending on where you live and the current position you find yourself in. Habits, behaviours, and moods are going to be different. And if your brand wants to target them, you need to take all of this into consideration. People are generally stressed for one reason or another. A lot are tired due to no holiday or limited time off. And if you're making it difficult for your audience to contact you or buy from you, the chances are you're going to be losing customers. Our habits are changing all the time, sometimes because we want to and sometimes because we have to, like when the PM made his announcements on Saturday night. But it really makes me sad to see that some companies are still not prepared. On Sunday, I saw 2 posts on Facebook from local companies that I would love to support. One was a new farm shop opening, perfect for local produce. The other was a gift shop, perfect for Christmas shopping. So when I clicked on the links, I was horrified to see that neither of these 2 companies had a website. I PM'd the gift shop to see maybe she'd forgot to add the website and missed it off by accident. Her response was almost immediate, so a tick in the box for customer service. However, she confirmed that she didn't have a website, but assured me that she had lots of amazing items in her shop, which of course from later this week, I can't visit. So how is she going to make her sales? She seemed to be depending on Facebook and Instagram, which may get her through this difficult time, and I certainly hope that it does. But think what she could be selling if she had a website, somewhere to showcase her products, and maybe a little bit more joined up thinking. She's making it difficult for people by making the customer think, what do I need? And then send her a PM saying, do you sell this? Waiting for a reply, Whereas I should be able to scan a website at leisure and see gift ideas that I think, oh, that would be perfect present for whoever. She's making it extremely difficult to buy from her. And to be honest, most people won't jump through the pain hoop and will go and support another local company. Marketing in COVID times moves faster than normal, and brands need to keep up and change accordingly, while taking into account all outside factors and matching with their internal objectives and messaging. And if that wasn't enough, we now have Brexit coming fast. So you need to start thinking about the implications of this onto your strategy and prepare for a needed shift in direction, tone, and messaging. Marketing spend is down so far in 2020. A survey in March this year found that 55% of UK marketeers and 57% of American marketeers said product or service launches were delayed or under review. So if other people in your market have stopped launching or advertising, are you missing the opportunity to increase your visibility and cut through? We are starting to see green shoots and things are getting busier in the marketing sector generally, although some parts are still down from projections and year-on-year growth. We are not yet sure, of course, about the latest lockdown implications. Some Google ad prices dropped earlier in the year due to lack of demand. However, they are now bouncing back along with other prices in the industry. But that's not to say that you still can't bag yourself a deal for some marketing touch points. So put your negotiation hat on and go and see what you can get. And of course, the new restrictions may have other impact on these prices. So it's a noisy world. Although there is no official data as yet, marketing experts estimate that in the Western world, we are subjected to between 6,000 and 10,000 ads and messages a day. So at some point we start the screening process for what we want to engage with and start to overlook brands and advertising messages unless it's something that we have a personal interest in. And on top of this, we all have other things on our mind, like our to-do list, working, keeping the boss happy or your company afloat, calling your dad, cleaning the house, keeping fit and active, calling the plumber as the tap in the bathroom stopped working. The list goes on and on. And now on top of the normal day-to-day grind, your customers are trying to figure out the new COVID world, what the ever-changing rules are, how are they going to make ends meet, are their jobs safe, and keeping their companies afloat, paying the rent, the mortgage, and more. So taking all this into account, your activities and messages need to cut through this busy world we live in. People want simple, not complicated. Supplying an adequate service is no longer good enough. Consistently delivering an exceptional high standard of customer service is now needed to retain your customers. Brands need to look at the customer as the most important part of their business. Customers need to feel that they can rely on the brand, and you need to look after their needs. Look at the customer journey and make changes accordingly. This can involve asking yourself questions such as, are you working the hours your customers need, or are you working the hours that you want to? What response time is there for getting back to customers, and does this change in time depending on the channel they choose? So, for example, are you quicker to reply an email than you are a social media query? Customer experience is the customer's perception of how you treat them. The perception of how you treat them will affect their behaviour and leave memories of how you left them feeling, which drives their loyalty towards you. Basically meaning that if they like you and their perception is good, they will continue giving you their business for a long time and probably recommend you to others. However, if the perception is bad, they will leave. 86% of buyers are willing to pay more for great customer experience. So it's suggested that loyalty is no longer based on price or product. Customers stay loyal to companies due to the experience that they receive. In a recent study by superoffice.com, the question, what is the top priority for your business in the next 5 years, was asked with the response of the following percentages. 45.9% customer experience, 33.6% product, and only 20.5% was pricing. Are you beating up your customer? Customers have got away with lapsed customer service for long enough, and the tide is about to change. So why do customers pause or leave you? Poor service is one, meaning the business failed to meet the expectations in terms of how it delivered a product or service, or it might have been the way that you handled a complaint. It could have been neglect. In the initial stages of acquisition, the customer was engaged regularly, but over time, this engagement changed or stopped, essentially making the customer feel neglected. It may have been poor product or service offering. The quality of the product or service didn't meet the expectations and was an inferior quality. Or a high percentage is irrelevant communication. If your communication isn't appropriate to the customer needs or not aligned with the customer wishes, it puts customers off. Some companies overuse methods such as email marketing to their customers and eventually annoy them, so they leave. So now add COVID into the mix, and what does this mean? For a while, companies were getting away with long call times and bad customer responses by saying, sorry, it's due to COVID, we don't have the staff available, or some such message. However, mood and patience on this level has now also run out. To be perfectly frank, customers don't care, and they're losing interest in excuses made by companies, as their perception is, COVID's been around for months now, you should have got your act together. And if you haven't, I'll find a company that can. So just think about this from your personal experience for a moment. How many times do you call a shop, a business, or a call centre to have a pre-recorded message telling you something along the lines of wait times are high, reduced hours, lack of staff, etc., due to COVID? Or, just as bad, the phone keeps on ringing, leaving you to think, are they open and busy? Not open? Is the business no longer trading? Chances are, if you absolutely don't have to speak to that particular company, you'll put the phone down and move on to another company. If you do need to speak to them, you will suffer in silence and then change the company you are dealing with at the first chance you get. Are you making your customers jump through hoops to buy? Are you asking them to go here, go there, fill this in, send this bit somewhere else, wait for a reply, etc.? Think about the experiences that you have personally had this year, and at what point did you give up buying a product or a service from a particular company? I recently needed some new glasses and I had an up-to-date prescription. So I went to a well-known optician and stood at the entrance as instructed by the signs. The sales assistant was sat facing me about 3 meters away and the shop was empty. I was ignored for a few minutes and had to say excuse me to get her attention. I was then told she'd be with me shortly. When she finally came over, she explained that I explained that I had an up-to-date prescription and wanted to buy some frames. She told me I had to go online and book an appointment for a review, then come back into store for my review. Then I'd be allowed to try on only 5 pairs of glasses. I repeated I didn't need the review because I had the paperwork with me on my prescription. But apparently this wasn't the process. I had to go away, make the appointment and come back. So I did go away. And I walked into another store who welcomed me in, checked my prescription, said all was fine, try on as many pair of glasses as I wanted to. The only request was please put them into a special box provided once I'd touched them because they would need to be sanitized. End result, I ordered 2 pairs of glasses and would never set foot in the first shop again. So take another look at your customer journey in all aspects and identify if you need to make some changes. All of these things need to be taken into account when you write your strategy and you work through the activities in the next section. It's not just about picking an activity and away you go. You have to take all these things into account, or else you might be losing time and money, or both. So once you have your foundations in place and you have taken all the other subjects into account, now you need to decide what activity to do to build on your foundations. Before starting any marketing activity, company needs to question themselves on what it is you want to achieve from this activity. You need to think about what your expectations are for the activity and are the expectations different between people within your business. You may run a campaign and by your expectations, it was brilliant. And you need to report it back to the director or the CEO who was expecting something different. If you define the goals at the beginning, this challenge will be resolved. So what is the activity and why? When are you going to do it? Who is going to action each activity? How are you going to measure it? Who is going to report the measurement and at what level? What's the budget? All things to take into account, coupled with all the trends, the moods and the journeys and the other items we have discussed previously. Remember, the strategy needs to be balanced between time and budget, or else it will stay in a drawer and gather dust because either A, you can't afford it, or B, you don't have time to do it. Marketing activities can be any of these shown and more. I would always suggest that you look at all areas, even if once you have done this and researched them thoroughly, you decide they are not appropriate and dismiss them. Companies tend to just keep doing what they are doing and don't take any of the items we have discussed so far into account. Sometimes items are also dismissed as they have been tried once before and thought to be a failure without analysing exactly what happened and were the expectations measured correctly. And of course, in relation to previous slides, the market and the mood may have changed. So it's always a good idea to go back, take another look before discounting something. Now, once you identify an area that you wish to work on, you will need to do some research, make decisions, and then put it into your strategy with a costing, timing, measurement, and staff allocation. If you're going to do a digital advert, for example, you will need to check that the platform that you have chosen is in fact where your audience is. From the research that you do with the media publication or platform, you should be able to establish click-through rates and expectations versus costs and expected leads or outputs. You will need to identify who is going to launch, run and measure this activity and any reporting structure you might need internally. Put your past activities under a microscope and see what you find. Should you give that activity another try? And if so, what are you going to do differently? Although we are not going to have enough time in this session to cover every marketing activity, I will run through some thoughts and things to take into account on various sections. However, don't forget that if you wish to speak to a Business West advisor, and if you qualify for the programme, you could have a one-on-one marketing session with myself or another support provider and talk through all of these points and activities in more detail. It's all about me. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's all about the customer. Many companies believe it's all about them and forget it's actually about your customer. Have you ever noticed a company's messaging or literature and website copy telling you how brilliant they are? Drayton Bird, who is a British marketing expert, says, do a you and we count for the text you have written. The more you use you words, the more the messages get read. It's because people prefer to hear about their own interests. So go through your messages in whatever format and do a me and a you count. And if the you words don't outnumber the me words 2 to 1, then you'll need to address this. You also need to take into account your writing style and how you write content. How you would write a press release is different to how you would write a blog, for example. A lot of companies make the mistake of writing one piece of content and then seeding it in multiple locations. This doesn't translate well and may mean that you are not getting the exposure you deserve because of your content. Also remember your tone of voice. What do you want to portray about your company? Tone of voice helps to reflect your brand's personality and will help you to connect with your target audience, but be careful you get the right approach. For example, I recently wrote a complaint letter about a product, and the opening 2 lines of the response I received took me a little by surprise. The response read, "Hi, cute Maggie. Wow, thank you so much for your email. It's highly appreciated. So useful. Your time means the world to me." And then it went on. What would you think if you received that reply? In my view, this particular company needs to rethink their tone of voice as they are missing the mark. Not only that, but they didn't actually do what they said they were going to when I replied either. So I got a rubbish customer service on 2 fronts. End result of this, I'm now buying a different product from somewhere else, having been a loyal customer. So this gives you some ideas of what to look for when you communicate to your customer and how to use your tone of voice. Put your text under the microscope and really think about what it is you're trying to say and trying to get across. Looking and adjusting text through various methods could be part of your strategy. Everybody wants to be number 1 and everybody asks me, how do I get there? What do I have to do? The answer is complex and involves secret algorithms to measure and prioritize over 200 different search factors. But it's not just about getting your target audience to the website. It's about what you do with your potential customer when you get them there. Is your content and customer journey good enough to keep them on your site and get them to do the action that you require? For example, this may be to buy a product or fill in their details on the database for your newsletter, fill in a contact form or call you. Then you need to track the actions that you want them to take. So for example, if your goal is 10 people a month filling in a contact us form, how many actually do it? And if you're not getting the numbers, then why not? You will need to take into account if you are driving enough people to convert. Look at how many people are currently converting and current traffic that make more decisions. To make some decisions on what you need to do and hit your goals. All of this should be written in your strategy, if this is your goal. Look at where your traffic is coming from, as this is also very important. You may be putting a lot of focus on social media, for example, but you need to track that this is converting traffic to your website. You can, of course, check the social media onboard statistics to give you an idea of impressions and engagements, but your website analytics will show you who came and from where. This is also very useful when looking at your social platforms and what's working better for you, as it will give you a split between all the platforms and the visitors you receive. This will enable you to then reevaluate your campaign to see if it's working and then tweak or change accordingly. Don't duplicate your content and don't lift it from other sites. If you do, you will likely not rank or not rank as well as you could. This is because Google will realize you have lifted content and favor the source of the information and not your company. With desktop is currently trending downwards, mobile is up and trending high. According to StatCounts, 52% of all internet traffic now comes from mobile. So it's not a real surprise why 84% of companies who claim they are customer-centric are now focusing on the mobile customer experience. Google processes an average of over 40,000 search queries every second. This converts to 3.5 billion searches per day and 1.2 trillion searches per year worldwide. Google states that 57% of customers won't endorse a company that is badly designed, that has a badly designed website on mobile, and 40% of customers have gone to a competitor site after receiving a poor experience. So do you have call to click on your website? If not, I would suggest an action in your strategy for this, as you could be missing sales after you've done all the hard work of getting people to your site. To put this into perspective for you so you can measure the priority you give this action, 60% of smartphone users have contacted a business directly by using the search results, i.e. click to call option. Take a look at your website health. Are there any broken links that need attending to? Does the information that you have an option to download work? Do you have links to other websites that are no longer exist? Or maybe you've got too many internal links. These can all have a negative impact. Technical issues can have an influence on your ranking of your page results on search engines. Google don't like to see broken links. I'm constantly running website checks and find that 98% of the time there is something wrong. So please do take the time to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. You also need to check for typos, missing data, meta descriptions, links to social networks, and more. If you have a developer working with you, they may be able to help you do this, but be careful as not all developers have the means to do this, as you need relevant software. If you don't have a developer on retainer, don't worry, as if you join one of the Business West programs for marketing, I can do this for you and guide you through any alterations needed. Search engine optimization can sometimes be about making small modifications to parts of your website. When you look at these on an individual basis, you may think, what's the point? It's just a small improvement. These changes may be small, but when combined with other elements and optimization, they could have a visible impact on your site's user experience and the performance through your organic search results. Most companies tend to forget about PR when writing their strategy. PR is a lot more subtle than your normal advertising, direct marketing, and the likes. However, PR can be very cost effective, so this could be a potential opportunity for you to put in your strategy. Reaching out to journalists can work very well. They are always on the lookout for new stories, products, and services, and are happy to be approached. The general preferred method is email, with 93% of journalists saying they prefer this method from a study by Mudrack last year. If you have a great news story that you have identified, get your press release written out there, but don't forget your quotes, a photo, and your editor's notes. However, don't assume the media will automatically write about you. It has to be interesting to them and their readers. But of course, PR covers more than just press releases. What about the internal factor? Many companies tend to forget this side. Internal PR can be used for supporting a major change within your business. communicating messages from the management, allowing feedback from staff, raising awareness of business issues and priorities, motivating employees, and much more. But don't forget to write the negative side into your strategy. Who is responsible and what is the process for receiving negative comments that you may receive through social media or online? Make sure you have a strategy for diffusing the situation quickly so you don't damage your brand. Everybody wants to jump onto the social media bandwagon, but there are things to take into account first. Many companies just pick one or more platforms and start pushing the post site into the world. But first you need to check where your audience is. If they are not on Instagram, why are you concentrating your efforts there? Or maybe you could be using Instagram for another reason, in which case you need to define this and put it into your strategy. You need to ensure that you are not just selling. By this, I mean every post is about buy my product or service. This is not engaging content and will most likely lose you a follower or even more worse, get you blocked. Try and build the relationship through the platform, but be realistic in what you expect. If you start to use a platform, then you should post and maintain it. There is nothing worse than looking at a social platform where a company has not touched it for months, as it leads you to think, are they even trading anymore? As mentioned before, don't lose your customers through inappropriate emailing. Your messaging has to be relevant. Don't overdo it and hound your customers or else they will leave you. If you are going to produce a newsletter, be careful at the frequency. Do you have the time and the content to fill a weekly newsletter? And do your clients want a weekly one? Or maybe a monthly one might be better all round. Maybe it'd be interesting to look at a third-party mailing or a collaboration. These are all things to have a think about. What are you trying to achieve from your mailing? Are you wanting to drive traffic? Maybe it's a good news feature or just a touch point for remembering you. And of course, please make sure that you have the relevant permissions before emailing your audience. Many companies just want to do digital advertising or sometimes no advertising at all. And if that's what works for your business, then great. But don't dismiss it without some research. Think about the landscape of your customers. What are they reading and where are they hanging out? Think back to what we spoke about in regards to the mood of your audience and how to market to them. This may include digital or traditional media. But whatever you choose, your advert has only a few seconds to get their attention. Once you have their attention, then you need to interest them in your proposition. Remember to track your advert so you can see what happens and what it generates. Look at the positioning. A tiny advert tucked away amongst many others is unlikely to generate hundreds of responses. Do you want to include an editorial? And if so, you will need to analyze the opportunity for this and decide what you're going to write about. So content is still king. There are many types of content, including video, SMS messages, webinars, blogs, the list go on. Content can help you drive inbound traffic to your website, as well as keeping your audience engaged with your website. Captivating content will help to improve your SEO, as good content tends to be shared, which will help others to find your website and learn more about you. Content marketing helps to encourage trust in your brand, as it can help you to become an expert in your field, helping your customers to trust and respond you more, which will influence and impact their purchasing decisions. 52% of B2B buyers said that they viewed 2 to 4 pieces of content before making contact or buying, and 28% said they viewed between 5 to 7 pieces before doing this. So all these statistics point to the fact that marketers need to embrace different marketing vehicles and better tell their messages and content to the consumer. But check your metrics. There are different kinds. Traffic metrics relate to the number of visits or unique visitors. Engagement metrics include things like bounce rates, repeat visitors, and time spent on your site. A bounce rate of 80% means 80% of your customers land on your webpage and leave immediately. A measure of how much time an audience spends on your content can say a lot about the quality. Having a high repeat visit levels is a positive sign, as it shows your customers are willing to come back. Lead generation metrics include number of leads converted to sales opportunities and ultimately leads closed as deals. Emotion metrics include things like comments, likes, and shares, but don't have a metric in traffic, for example, and then measure it in something else. So as you can see, writing a strategy is more than just picking an activity. There are lots of things to take into account and analyse. But by doing this exercise, clients generally express how it has helped them to clarify things, save money and time, and help them keep on track. So I hope the items we have covered today have helped to put you on the right path for writing your marketing strategy. However, if you would like more help or support with this, you can contact one of the Business West advisors who would be happy to chat with you about your requirements. So please do get in touch, and you never know, we may be working together in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Maggie, and a warm round of virtual applause. It's always difficult just talking away at a webinar when it's you're not getting that much engagement back from the audience. So thank you and well done. Questions. We've had a couple come in. Website. I've already got a website. Is it expensive to have a mobile friendly website adapted, or would I have to start from scratch again?
It's generally best if you start from scratch. Not always the case, but generally better. This varies a lot because, of course, some companies have paid, some people, I don't know, £20,000 sometimes to have an e-commerce site, and some people have paid £350. So you've got a whole range of things, but it's worth the investment. Whatever level you're at, it's worth the investment to go back and take a look and probably take into account the other items that I've talked about as well. So maybe it's time to change a lot of the content and other bits and pieces as well and have a complete new refresh. But really, it's a matter of going out there to the web developers, asking them for some costs and costing it up and seeing where you stand.
And then on the same kind of vein, what about some of these websites in a box, places like GoDaddy or One and One? What's your kind of thoughts on that one? Because they do offer everything all included and also do kind of like a shop front. So in your mind, how would you evaluate a cost of doing something through one of those website providers to actually going and paying a web developer that could be 10, 20 times the cost?
Yeah, interesting one. And it depends on a lot of elements. So first of all, it depends where you are in your business. If you currently don't have a website, it's more important that you get one. So if all you can afford is to go to GoDaddy or the likes of, then basically get one. That's the first step. And then write it into your strategy to basically try and upgrade your site as and when you can. Okay, that's probably point number one. I would always recommend that you go to a developer because there's more things to take into account. I know these other platforms do your SEO and things like that, but when people say they do the SEO, it's such a massive, massive subject. They might just basically be doing the Bobby basics, in which case, what about all the other stuff? So you need to take all of that into account as well. So I think it really depends on kind of where you are with your journey. My personal preference is always go to a web developer, but make sure obviously you've got a good one that knows what they're doing, and check if they SEO the site. And when they say yes, check exactly what they're doing. Because as I said, generally they will say, well, we'll do the stuff at the back end, but it's just the top level approach. So be careful what you're getting and ask the relevant questions. But I would also say, if you can go to a developer, do. If you don't have the money, go to what you need to. So the out of the box proposition, because at least it gives you something to get started on while you get the money together to go and improve it further down the line. Okay.
A couple more questions have come through. Question from Justin Cohen. What sort of metrics do you advise measuring if you are a manufacturer and sell via distributors and therefore don't have access to the final sales data?
Okay, run that one by me again. A manufacturer sells through distribution.
Yeah, so you don't have the access to the final sales data. So what kind of metrics would you advise to be measuring?
Well, I think it depends on the setup, and that's difficult to answer without knowing all of the implications. But effectively, if you're selling through distribution, I mean, as you know from the start, I used to sell through distribution. We would measure their metrics. So we would measure obviously sales to them and sales out the door, trends and the likes of through them. we would also, potentially measure what's going on our side as well. So it depends how you kind of set your business up. You might want to still generate brand awareness, in which case you still want to drive people to your website, in which case you might have a measurement of increasing that by, I don't know, 100 a month, 1,000 a month, whatever, because you want that interest. And then people, it might have on there the distributors that they buy from. So if you're driving people to your website, they can then see the distributors and link through into the distributors. It depends what your setup is.
Okay, and then one final question I can see on here, and it's from Chris Bates. You say that we shouldn't reshare our content from one platform to another. I don't post more than about once per week, so to not share the content to different platforms feels like a missed opportunity. Which one is worse?
Okay, so what I meant by that is, if you have, if you've written a press release and you've sent it out to local media, and then you take that and you just pop it on your website, or you take that and shove it somewhere else. Basically, you can rewrite content. They do say that you can rewrite content up to 3 times. Okay, so you can, if you write a blog, technically you can write it again 3 times, so it will be different content, so it's not saying the same thing. And then, of course, you can kind of chop and change that to pick out bits to feed through on your social media platforms. So if you've got a blog that's, I don't know, 1,000 words long, you can obviously, you've only got so many characters through your social media platform. So you can just cut that down or reword it to send it out. So it's still the same content in theory, but obviously you've reworded it and rewritten it and repurposed it for those relevant platforms. And also remember with your social media platforms to go back to where your audience are. So you might put a different message out on Twitter because you're targeting a B2B platform than you would be through Facebook, which is a B2C platform. So you've got to think about what your audiences want and then tailor the messages accordingly. I'm not a fan of one message over all platforms, because if you've done the analysis properly, all your audience aren't in the same place. So what they're looking for is different.
Okay. And then kind of on the same vein, there's one question just come in from Melina. If I acquire customers via a social media platform and engage with them on there, do I still need a website?
It's the simple question. So the reason I say that is because, going back to the example that I gave at the beginning, those 2 local companies, they've just set up, it's on Facebook, yes, but I don't have anything to go and look at on the website. So this lady has got this shop full of, I'm sure, wonderful gifts that I can't see. Now, the thing is with Facebook is, yes, you can post things and whatever, but it doesn't give you that flexibility of the website where people can go and look and see and explore and use that to communicate with you as well. And also, you've got to think, depending on your audience, they're not all on these platforms. So some people aren't on Facebook, some people aren't on Instagram, and vice versa. If you've got a website, then they've got a way of contacting you through phone, through email, through your contact form. So you're giving the customer the choice of how to basically come to you. You're not saying, I'm just on Facebook, you've got to contact me through Facebook if you want me. Give them that choice.
Okay. And I know on a previous role that I've had, I created one of those kind of off-the-shelf websites, and it was more like an online brochure with case studies, etc. So yes, it was a good platform to kind of link in your social media and point people to as like an online brochure rather than a means to an end. So I can see how that would work when a lot of your clients are coming through social media.
Yeah, and I think, there is a place for these kind of out of the box type websites. There is a place for them. I'm not discounting them by whatever means, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And that all of the marketing stuff, you've got to start with that question, what are you trying to achieve? And then you look at the elements that fit for what you're trying to achieve the best. And that might be a fully bespoke website. It might be a template website. It might be an out of the box. But again, think about how your customers are trying to get hold of you. A lot of times it's just, well, you've got to fill in the contact form, or else there's no way of getting hold of you. So you've got to give them that option, because people want to do different things. They might want to PM you on Facebook. They might want to email you. They might want to, I don't know, WhatsApp you. So you've got to give them that option.